What role does product innovation play from Kerry's point of view?
Product innovation is a very important part of our overall strategy. I think there's a few points that we just need to consider with respect to product innovation, and that is, I would say, firstly, it's important that whatever innovations we put in place, that they're commercializable, and there is a financial return with respect to any innovation we do undertake. In Kerry, innovation is driven by the businesses. As Tara mentioned, and a very important point, that it's the consumer that drives or informs our innovation across our business. And it's very important that from a Kerry perspective, that innovation results in a financial return. So I would say it's very much incorporated, product innovation is very much incorporated into our overall strategy. It's a key point and a key element with respect to creating differentiation for us in any particular marketplace versus our competitors. And without differentiation, all we've left to compete on is in price, and that's not a great place to be.
All right, and John, can you tell us from your point of view, particularly given what we saw from Tara about the demand for meat and the potential for meat, how are you responding in terms of your growth plans?
Well, hello?
Yeah, just hold it up a little bit closer.
Yeah, I think it's a useful exercise that Board B have just concluded, but and as Tara rightly pointed out, the focus is on the new opportunities to develop new markets, but we should not forget, and we should insist that we want to maintain our existing markets. And I suppose the strategy is different for each species when we're talking about meat. So in the case of beef and lamb and pork, the new opportunities are very different. But the most important, I suppose, focus that we should have is that we fight to retain our existing markets. For example, in the case of beef, out of every 10 animals we slaughter in Ireland, 9 are exported off the island, of which more than 4 go into the UK. And another 4 go to the continental Europe. So we're talking about the mainstay of our business being within Europe. And there's loads of growth opportunity within Europe before we even go outside Europe. And that's driven largely by some of the health agendas that were referred to by both Joe and Tara, for grass-fed beef in particular, of which we have an abundance in this country. And we should endeavour to grow and sustain our grass-fed beef production in Ireland in a sustainable way, I might add, through investment in genomics or whatever it takes, and, for example, carbon sequestration policies to ensure that the product we're producing is sustainable and that we have the best markets, because the most mature markets are within Europe. And while there is loads of opportunity outside of Europe, we need to hasten slowly. In our business, even though we slaughter animals, we don't export animals. We don't export carcasses, we export cuts. So from every carcass, there's about 60 anatomical cuts that we export. And the job in our business and in our industry is to find the best market globally for each anatomical cut. And we find that there is a different value for each cut. And in fact, nearly every cut has different specification requirements in different markets across the world. So that what Ireland needs to do is optimize its options in terms of market access to be able to best sustain our presence within Europe. So the more successful we are in finding new markets, the more and the better we'll be able to defend our existing markets in Europe.
And Tara, I saw you nodding there on that point that John was making about the existing markets. And do you also think we should hasten slowly, or how do you work out the balance between those new markets you were identifying and going after that, and keeping going in the existing markets where we know there is a market?
I guess the purpose of today's presentation was to highlight that market prioritisation agenda, but we'd fully concur with John as well that consistently we have said that the solution in our approach to Brexit is defend and build. that you cannot walk away from your current markets. We have, with the support of the Department of Agriculture, built in top-to-top meetings with our key customers, help them understand what we're doing. Even this week on Thursday, we'll be working again with our key customers when we're over at the trade reception in London, speaking all of the time of our commitment and of our understanding of that market. But that does not allow us to stand still. We still, regardless of whether Brexit happened or didn't happen, we still, as a growing food industry, need to find new markets. And what we're looking to do with this study is have a toolkit, rather than shooting at any market that's moving, actually have a toolkit that allows us strategically to prioritise those markets, prioritise our resources going into those markets, and increase our chances of success, because it has to be a market insight-led approach.
And, you know, Kerry, Keepack, these are big operations, but for small producers, you know, looking at that, you know, again, that fantastic data you were outlining, and they might say, where do I fit into all of this?
Absolutely. And what we're looking to create are toolkits for the industry, because different companies, depending on their stage of development, will have different priorities. And I guess that's why we took not an Ireland Inc. approach, but a sector-specific approach, and then we're inventing or creating new toolkits to help the industry.
So it's not one size fits all?
Not at all. And that route-to-market skill set as a talent development area for the industry, if we look at the human capital of this industry, then we need new skills. And these new skills, no matter what size company you are need investment. And I guess that's why I called out in our own strategy, if we look at the talent development programs that we have, route-to-market is the space that we're investing our talent programs to help companies big and small address these new challenges that they're facing.
Joe, it was fascinating in your presentation because, again, when we're focusing on, you know, the day-to-day minutiae of all the problems, but, you know, what you were showing, there's a lot of growth going on. There's a lot of demand out there, which is incredibly reassuring. From your point of view as an American here in Ireland, what do you think there is, perhaps in the US experience, that might be useful, instructive to people here?
That's a good question. And largely because I think the U.S. in one sense is going through a very similar debate right now on how to maintain markets given these potential renegotiations of these major trade agreements. The NAFTA markets are very, very large compared to, much like the UK would be to Ireland, or very similar magnitude for some markets, others not so much, but just in terms of overall exports. So how to maintain that? The concern, I think, is that we see things like Mexico and others saying, well, if tariffs go back on, we're going to find alternative suppliers for grains or oil seeds. And how realistic that is, I don't know, but those are the real concerns, and how to maintain a competitiveness in that environment. I think I would say, much like the previous speakers have said, in terms of trying to maintain competitiveness means always trying to look for innovation, how to get into markets, how to reach consumers within individual markets and make a case for discriminating your product, and in a world where commodities look a lot alike. So.
And e-commerce and all of this, I was intrigued by your references and data there.
Yeah, I think particularly on a lot of it is more on the domestic demand, what's going on in the States, but you see private label e-commerce work really beginning to transform a lot of the marketing, I think, and where these very, very large chains now, you know, have their own milk processing plants, for example, other things that just 10 years ago no one would have really thought much about, but now are really dominating industry trends and things like that.
How big a factor would that be from either of your point of view?
E-commerce?
Edmund, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that, look, the online revolution that we're in the middle of, or maybe we're partway through, or we're beginning, it's not too sure, but the online revolution that's happening is not going to go away. It's even, I would say, more important in developing markets. It is a way to get at consumers. It's an easier way in one respect to get at consumers, but you have to have an overall strategy.
John?
Yeah.
You're on. Just hold it really close.
Yeah.
You're pointing it away. Just
Yeah,
turn it
no,
in. That's
no,
it.
concur with that. It's obviously the future for, especially for emerging lifestyles and for younger people. Take examples of how eating out of home, how it is driven by online technology, and that's clearly the future.
One of the things that struck me in both the presentations that we saw today was, you know, again, the driver, the huge driver that Asia is, the huge demand coming from there.